Imagine a man worth billions, private jets, mansions across continents, and the kind of power that could change lives with a single phone call. Now imagine that same man walking barefoot on dusty streets, sleeping on cold floors, begging for food just to survive. Why would a billionaire do that? What could he possibly gain by throwing away his riches, if only for 10 days? This is the story of Adewale Okoro, the African billionaire whose daring decision shocked his friends, his family, and eventually, the whole world. Adewale Okoro was not just wealthy, he was legendary. Known as the Lion of Lagos, he had built an empire in real estate, technology, and oil. His name was whispered with admiration in boardrooms, and with envy in the streets. But despite his success, Adewale felt something missing. Every handshake felt fake. Every smile around him was bought with money. Even his closest business partners would never dare to tell him the truth, they told him only what he wanted to hear. One evening, as he sat in his penthouse office overlooking the city lights, he remembered his grandmother's words. The true measure of a man is not what he has, but how he lives when he has nothing. Those words haunted him. So he made a decision. He would step out of his empire, strip away his wealth, and live like the poorest man on the streets of his own city, for 10 days. But he would tell no one. Not his assistants. Not his bodyguards. Not even his family. For 10 days, Adewale Okoro would vanish from his billionaire world and walk among those who barely survived. And so, one Friday night, Adewale left his mansion dressed in nothing more than old jeans, a torn shirt, and worn-out sandals. He carried no phone, no money, no ID. By dawn, the Lion of Lagos had become just another face in the crowd. The first day seemed easy at first. Adewale was confident, he had faced boardroom wars and international negotiations, surely life on the streets would be simple. But reality hit fast. By midday, the sun scorched his skin. His expensive cologne had long faded, and sweat drenched his worn shirt. He tried to find food, but without money, the only option was to beg. The first person he approached, a street vendor selling roasted corn, looked at him with suspicion. "Oga, if you no get money, a beg go. I no fit give everybody free food." Rejection. Harsh. Direct. By evening, his stomach growled painfully. He wandered the streets until he found a group of homeless men near a market. One of them offered him a small piece of bread. Adewale hesitated, he wasn't used to sharing scraps. But hunger doesn't ask for pride. That night, he slept on a cold concrete floor, rats scurrying near his head. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself. Only 9 more days. But deep down, he already doubted if he could last. The next morning, Adewale tried to find work. He approached construction sites, mechanic shops, and even hawkers. Everywhere, the answer was the same. "We no need stranger. Go away, you look weak. You day smell, a beg comet." The words cut deeper than he expected. In his billionaire life, doors always opened before him. But now, as a poor man, every door slammed shut. By afternoon, he sat under a bridge, defeated. His pride, the very thing that had built his empire, was now his greatest enemy. Just when he was about to give up, an old woman selling akara, bean cakes, noticed him. She asked, "Young man, you never chop?" Without waiting for an answer, she handed him 2 small akara balls. The taste was simple, but to Adewale, it felt like a feast. That night, he realized something. The people who had the least were often the ones who gave the most. On the 3rd day, hunger and exhaustion pushed Adewale to the edge. He saw a restaurant and thought of sneaking in to ask for leftovers. But as soon as he stepped inside, the security guard shoved him out. "Get out, you dirty beggar. This place is not for people like you." People passing by laughed. Some shook their heads in pity. Others simply ignored him. For the first time in years, Adewale felt invisible. He sat on the sidewalk, his clothes torn, his pride shattered. That night, rain poured heavily. With no shelter, he crouched under a tin roof, shivering in the cold. His body ached, his stomach was empty, and his heart was heavy. "How do people survive like this, every day?" he whispered. He had only lived 3 days of poverty, but it already felt like a lifetime. And he still had 7 days to go. What happens next will push Adewale beyond his limits. In days 4 to 7, he will face betrayal, shocking danger, and, most unexpectedly, a kindness that will change everything. By the 4th day, Adewale had grown weaker. His beard was unkempt, his shirt torn, and his body smelled of sweat and rain. That morning, he met a young man named Toby, who claimed to know a place where small jobs were available. Desperate for food, Adewale followed him. The job? Carrying sacks of cement at a construction site. Though his muscles burned, Adewale felt proud. For the first time since leaving his mansion, he had worked for food. The supervisor gave him a plate of rice and beans as payment. Adewale ate gratefully, smiling for the first time in days. But when evening came, Toby disappeared, with the little wages meant for both of them. Betrayal. As he lay hungry again, Adewale realized something painful: poverty made trust dangerous. That night, Adewale chose to sleep in an abandoned bus at the edge of the market. He thought it would be safer than the open street. But around midnight, a group of street thugs stormed in. They accused him of trespassing on their spot. "Old beggar, pay us or leave with broken bones," one shouted. Adewale had nothing to give. One of the men raised a stick to strike him. But then, a voice interrupted. It was the old Accra seller from day 2. She had followed the commotion and shouted, "Leave him alone. He's just a hungry man. Shame on you." Surprisingly, the thugs backed off. They respected her. Adewale sat there trembling, his heart racing. That night, he slept behind her stall for safety. And for the first time, he felt what he had been searching for: genuine human protection, without money involved. On the 6th day, Adewale wandered near a school, watching children in worn uniforms run and laugh. His eyes filled with tears, memories of his own childhood, when life was simpler, before wealth consumed him. A small boy noticed him sitting alone. Without hesitation, the child pulled half of his lunch, a small piece of yam, from his pocket and handed it over. "Uncle, you look hungry. Take." Adewale accepted, speechless. The boy had almost nothing, yet still gave. That little act shook him more than any boardroom victory ever had. That night, as he lay under the stars, he whispered to himself, This is the truth of life. Wealth blinds us. Poverty exposes us." But just as he began to accept his new reality, something happened on day 8 that would change everything. Fire cliffhanger for part 4. In days 8 to 10, Adewale's story reaches its climax. He will face a final test, one that reveals the best and worst of humanity, and his ultimate reveal will shock the world. By the 8th day, Adewale's body was weak beyond measure. His legs ached, his stomach had shrunk, and even speaking felt like work. He had lived off scraps, kindness, and humiliation. That evening, he witnessed something that shook him to the core. A little girl, no older than 8, was begging on the street. A man in a suit walked past her, ignoring her cries. Desperate, the child tugged at his sleeve. The man turned and slapped her away. Adewale's blood boiled. Despite his weakness, he rushed forward. "Don't you dare touch her again." The suited man scoffed. "Who are you? Another street rat?" For the first time, Adewale felt the rage of the poor, the daily injustice, the cruelty of being invisible. He shielded the girl until the man stormed off. That night, with the child sleeping safely beside him, Adewale realized, wealth wasn't just privilege, it was responsibility. The next day, Adewale was offered an opportunity. A group of street boys approached him with a deal. Old man, help us distract the shopkeeper while we steal. You'll get your share. Hunger gnawed at him. 10 days of suffering screamed for relief. But he shook his head. I would rather starve than steal. The boys laughed and walked away. But the Accra seller, who had overheard, smiled at him. Even without riches, you still hold on to honor. Maybe that's why God gave you wealth. On the 10th day, Adewale had reached the end of his challenge. He stood outside the marketplace, his body weak but his spirit stronger than ever. Then, without warning, sleek black cars rolled into the street. Bodyguards in suits stepped out, scanning the crowd. Murmurs spread. Who are they looking for? The doors opened and out stepped Adewale's personal assistant, clutching a phone. He shouted, Mr. Okoro. We've been searching for you for days. The crowd gasped. The ragged beggar they had seen suffer, beg and starve, was revealed to be none other than Adewale Okoro, the billionaire himself. The Accra seller dropped her basket in shock. The little boy who had shared his yam stared wide-eyed. The same security guard who once shoved him out of a restaurant now looked pale with shame. Adewale straightened his back, his voice calm but powerful. For 10 days I lived like you. I felt your hunger, your pain, your humiliation. And now things will change. The marketplace erupted in whispers. Some cried. Some cheered. Others simply stared, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Within weeks, Adewale launched a massive project: free community kitchens, better housing for the homeless, and education programs for street children. When reporters asked him why he had disappeared for 10 days, his answer was simple. Because to lead people, you must first walk in their shoes. Wealth means nothing if it cannot lift others. And from that day, the Lion of Lagos was remembered not just as a billionaire, but as a man who dared to live poor, to rediscover his humanity. 10 days. That's all it took to strip away billions, status, and power, leaving behind only a man who rediscovered his humanity. Adewale Okoro returned to his empire a changed man, one who understood that true wealth is not in possessions, but in compassion. He turned his suffering into action, building free community kitchens, housing for the homeless, and schools for street children. The world was shocked but inspired. And now I want to leave you with one question. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow with nothing? Would you still find kindness in your heart? Or would you lose yourself to the struggle? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, stories like this remind us that money fades, but humanity remains. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Until next time, stay inspired, stay strong, and never forget the true meaning of wealth.